Recorded Books and RB Digital present Next to Last Stand by Craig Johnson. Narrated by me, George Guidall. There are not enough Indians in the world to beat the 7th Cavalry. George Armstrong Custer. Acknowledgements. The story of Cavalry Adams's painting, Custer's Last Fight, approaches the drama of the historic moment it depicts and is something I've wanted to write about for some time. Although I've been interested in the Battle of the Little Bighorn, I never developed the mania that seems to overtake those who fall under the spell of the historic incident that took place just up the road from my ranch. There's been so much written and rewritten on the subject that it seemed like a mountain too tall to climb until I stumbled onto something that triggered my interest. Other than seeing Budweiser reproductions hanging in every bar and saloon in the West, I happened on the painting in a literary sense in the Norman Maclean Reader, a collection of essays, letters, and other writings by, in my estimation, one of the most eminent men of letters in the West. A portion of the book is dedicated to an unfinished Custer manuscript that the great writer either gave up on or simply discovered he didn't have time to write. The Cavalry Adams painting is referred to numerous times, and its social implications intrigued me to the point that I started off on the first of many steps in climbing Mount Custer. One source was Christopher Cortlander, ambassador and diplomatic agent for the Crow Nation, and his extravagant Custer Battlefield Museum in Garryowen, Montana. Mr. Cortlander is licensed to reproduce the Otto Becker revision of Adams's Custer's Last Fight through Anheuser-Busch in a beautiful museum-quality print available through the museum at www.custermuseum.org. There have been numerous books written on Custer: The Little Bighorn Battle, Sitting Bull, and Crazy Horse, just to name a few, and I can say that I have now read the majority of them, and not all of them are good. The ones I'll mention here are the cream of the crop, so that any readers who wish to follow in my footsteps will have a ready-made trail marked for them. For an overall clear view of the historic events that led to the battle itself, and the ramifications that followed, Nathaniel Philbrick's The Last Stand would be hard to beat, with James and Jim Donovan's A Terrible Glory coming in at a phenomenally researched second. Stephen E. Ambrose's Crazy Horse and Custer was another wonderful read that brings the epic event down to a human scale, along with the venerable Son of the Morning Star by Evan S. Connell. There are others that encompass a larger scope, such as The Custer Myth by Colonel W. A. Graham and The Custer Reader by Paul Andrew Hutton, but I have to admit that I most enjoyed the native narratives for their polar perspective. We're fortunate enough to have amazing works such as James Welch's Killing Custer, my good friend Joseph M. Marshall III's The Day the World Ended, along with the anthologies of Lakota and Cheyenne voices such as Custer's Fall, collected by David Humphreys Miller, Cheyenne Memories of the Custer Fight, compiled by Richard G. Hardorf, and Lakota Noon, compiled by Gregory Michnow. Osprey Publishing's offering Little Bighorn 1876, Custer's Last Stand, is a concise guide to the battle for those not wishing to climb the mountain but loiter among the foothills. This book wouldn't have been quite so enjoyable without my many visits to the Brinton Museum in Bighorn and the Buffalo Bill Center of the West over in Cody, two museums that, if you happen to be passing through the wilds of Wyoming, you should make a point of experiencing. Thanks to Carol Williams and the staff at the Wyoming Home for Soldiers and Sailors, yes, she really does exist, and the staff and rangers up at the Little Bighorn Battlefield National Monument for answering my continual questions in my numerous visits. Thanks to all my friends and comrades on the Northern Cheyenne and Crow reservations for being the filter through which all this information had to pass. Finally, to my wife, Judy, the Scout, who finds the sign of my heart no matter how rocky the trail may be. Chapter 1. Years ago, on one particularly beautiful High Plains afternoon, when I was a deputy with the Absaroka County Sheriff's Department, I propped my young daughter, Katie, on my hip and introduced her to Charley Lee Stillwater. Charley Lee was one of the waivers, as they were called, the old veterans who sat in front of what was originally Fort McKinney, which then was called the Wyoming Soldiers and Sailors Home, until the name was changed to the Veterans Home of Wyoming to wave at passing traffic. Charley Lee put Katie in his lap and sang old cowboy tunes to her all
Sample complete. Ready to continue?